Welcome to today's Explainer. Get ready because we're about to completely shift your perspective today. We're unpacking this absolutely mind-bending concept from our source material that proves you, me, and literally everyone else on Earth, we never actually experience the universe in true real time. We're going to explore how time, space, and the sheer unimaginable vastness of the cosmos play some pretty wild tricks on our perception of reality, and we're going to break it all down step by step. Seriously, take a second and think about this. What if the fundamental reality of everyday life, like everything you look up and see in the night sky, is quite literally a broadcast from the past? I know, it sounds straight out of a science fiction movie, right? But as our source material explains, this isn't fiction at all. It is hard, observable physics. We are fundamentally disconnected from the actual present moment of the wider universe.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The entire concept hinges on this cosmic game of light and time. Now, light is the fastest thing in the universe, for sure, but it isn't instantaneous. It actually has a speed limit. Because space is just unimaginably vast, light takes time to travel from point A to point B. And since light is the very mechanism that allows us to see anything at all, this travel time dictates our entire reality. It creates this huge universal lag. Basically, we can only see things once the light from those objects eventually reaches our eyes.
To put that into perspective, consider a single, everyday number, 8. The sun is our closest star, right? But it sits millions of miles away. It takes exactly 8 minutes, give or take a few seconds, for the light from the sun to travel through the absolute vacuum of space and hit planet Earth. That means when you look up at the sun, well, you're not seeing the sun as it is right this very second. You are seeing the sun exactly as it was 8 minutes ago. We are literally 8 minutes behind the sun's actual reality.
This brings up a pretty wild hypothetical scenario mentioned in the source material. Imagine just for a moment that some supernatural event happened on the sun. Say a witch or a ghost appeared on the surface, danced around for exactly 2 minutes, and then completely vanished. Because of that 8-minute delay, that entire 2-minute event would be totally over and done with before the light of it even began to reach our eyes. By the time we looked up and gasped at the witch, she would have already been gone for 6 minutes. We are truly just watching a delayed broadcast.
So if an 8-minute delay happens just between us and our own sun, what happens when we scale this whole thing up? What happens if we step into the perspective of an observer way, way farther out in our own solar system? Well, the further away you go, the longer the light takes to reach you. And therefore, the further back into the past you are actually looking. That delay jumps to 10 hours. If you were standing on Neptune looking back at Earth through some incredibly powerful telescope, the cosmic delay stretches from 8 minutes to a full 10 hours. That means an observer on Neptune is watching Earth's events unfold 10 hours after they actually happened. They are literally 10 hours in the past compared to our present moment.
The source uses a pretty sobering but honestly highly effective analogy to explain this. Think of it as a sort of cosmic CCTV. Imagine a tragic event occurs on Earth. Let's say a student is tragically shot and killed on their way home from school, and there were no cameras around to capture it. But to an observer stationed all the way out near Neptune, looking at Earth 10 hours later, they wouldn't see the tragedy yet. Because of that cosmic delay, that observer would still be watching the delayed live stream of earlier that day. They'd see that child perfectly safe, still sitting in their classroom studying. The heartbreaking reality of the tragedy has absolutely already happened, but the visual evidence of it simply hasn't arrived yet.
So what happens if we push the boundaries of this thought experiment even further? What if we zoom out way into the deep cosmos? We aren't just talking about a delay of a few hours anymore. We're talking about pushing our cosmic delay from hours to an entire century. If an observer is positioned exactly 100 light years away from Earth, the light reaching them today left Earth exactly 100 years ago. So, if they pointed a hyper-advanced telescope at us right now, they wouldn't see you and me sitting here with this explainer. No way. They would be watching the world exactly as it was roughly a century ago. If they focused in on India, for example, they would literally be watching the nation's freedom struggle. They'd observe the historical events, the protests, and the tragedies as if they were live breaking news. And this actually illustrates a really striking comparison made in the source material regarding these historical events. The source looks at the Jallianwala Bagh massacre of 1919, which our distant observer would just be witnessing now, and compares it directly to the tragic Taj Hotel terror attacks of 2008. The source neutrally points out the grim, identical patterns of violence here. In both 1919 with General Dyer and in 2008 with Ajmal Kasab, You have a foreign attacker deliberately targeting innocent, unarmed people who are just peacefully gathering or going about their daily lives. The analysis notes that while different eras of history or different systems of education might frame one as an officer and another as a terrorist, the fundamental tragic pattern of a foreign attacker causing senseless loss of innocent life remains exactly the same.
But let's push the absolute limits of this concept. If 100 years gives us modern historical events, what if we go drastically farther back? I'm talking way back, prehistoric times.
Yes, 100,000 light years away. The crucial point here is, if an observer is situated 100,000 light years away from Earth, the light arriving to them right this second left Earth 100 millennia ago. They wouldn't see modern cities, they wouldn't even see the very earliest human civilizations. If they looked at Earth, they would be watching living, breathing dinosaurs roaming across the planet, eating, hunting, and surviving. To them, the dinosaurs aren't fossils buried deep in the ground, they are the current live inhabitants of Earth.
Now, you might be wondering, how do we actually use this science? Well, the source mentions a fascinating theoretical mission that NASA and other scientists have tossed around. It's essentially a hypothetical time machine, but not the kind you sit inside. The idea is to launch a highly advanced satellite incredibly deep into space. Once it's far enough away, say thousands or millions of light years out, it acts like a massive cosmic mirror or camera. It turns around, intercepts that ancient light radiating from Earth, and records the visual data of our planet's past. Then it transmits that recorded history back to Earth. We wouldn't be physically traveling to the past, but we would absolutely be able to watch it unfold on a screen exactly as it happened. It would be like the ultimate historical documentary. Of course, it would take a massive amount of time for a satellite to get that far, and just as long for the data signal to come all the way back. We wouldn't be around to watch this recorded data ourselves, but the source makes a really great point here. Human generations advance at a blisteringly rapid pace. This data wouldn't be for us. It would be a gift for highly advanced future humans who will have the crazy technology needed to process and learn from it. To highlight just how incredibly fast our generations advance relative to the super slow crawl of cosmic time, the source shares this hilarious anecdote about the evolution of the internet. Think about it. The internet only really arrived in India around 1995. Even up to 2010, we were dealing with agonizingly slow kilobyte connection speeds. The source recalls the era of 2012, using basic browsers like Opera Mini. The host of the source material actually shares a memory of how, back then, his friend asked if he watched YouTube. Because it was so new, he genuinely thought the platform was called YouTube, only later realizing it was YouTube. And now, barely a decade later, we have a generation raised entirely on instant, high-speed Instagram and social media. Our technological reality shifts in the blink of an eye, which is exactly why that future NASA data will be in very capable hands. But let's ground ourselves back in the hard science for a moment. All of this recording, all of this delayed observation, it's incredibly fascinating for sure, but there is a massive scientific boundary here. It is absolutely crucial to understand that while we can potentially watch the past through these cosmic delays, actually interacting with it or changing it, well, that's an entirely different story. This leads us to the most obvious and critical question. You're probably asking yourself, if we're hanging out on Neptune and we see an impending tragedy unfolding on our delayed broadcast, like the student in our earlier example, why can't we just pick up a cosmic phone, send a warning signal back to Earth, and save them? If we can see it happening in our present, why can't we intervene? The answer comes down to this number, 300,000 kilometers per second. This is the speed of light. It is the ultimate, unbreakable cosmic speed limit. Even if you fired off a warning message, like a high-tech laser communication, that message can only travel at the speed of light. It literally cannot travel faster than the light of the event itself. By the time your warning signal physically crosses the vast distance of space and reaches Earth, the tragedy has long since concluded. You simply cannot beat the light that brings you the image. And this perfectly illustrates the absolute bedrock of modern physics, Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. As the source material makes perfectly clear, unless Einstein's formulas are somehow completely proven wrong one day, and we discover some magical way to travel faster than the speed of light, we are physically locked out of changing history. The rules of relativity dictate that the speed of light is the absolute maximum limit in the entire universe. We are permanently trapped as mere observers of the past, never active participants. So, I'm going to leave you with this final, really provocative thought to ponder. We've established that anyone looking at Earth right now from the deep cosmos is watching our past. We are quite literally beaming a daily, uneditable broadcast of human history out into the stars. If our current reality is just a broadcast waiting to be seen by distant observers or future generations, what kind of history are we recording for them to watch? Thank you so much for joining today's explainer, and keep questioning the universe around you.